Welcome to the Olson Group Benefits TV. I'm your host, Tim Olson. This is the show dedicated to informing, educating, and empowering employees to make the best benefit decisions for themselves and their families. On this episode, we are talking about debt reduction, and here sharing her top debt reduction strategy is my good friend and industry expert, Karen Retker.
Hi, I'm Karen Retker, and I'm president of Principal Resource Group, and for over 20 years I have been helping people successfully save for their future. Today I'm going to be talking to you about debt reduction. When I talk to a room of people and ask them, why do you want to be out of debt? Or how would you like to be debt-free? All the hands go up in the room. Everybody wants to be debt-free. Why is that? Why does everybody want to be debt-free? Because they want that noose out from around their neck, right? They want the monkey off their back. They would like to be free of that burden. And I know that as soon as you're free of that burden, you're going to be happier. By having more money available, you could do more things that you want to do. And I hope that you maybe even will be able to increase your savings and be more successful saving for your future. In order to successfully accomplish debt reduction, we're going to need a plan. In order to have a plan, we got to have a goal. How soon would you like to be debt-free? Everybody says, tomorrow, today, it'd be great. Well, of course it'd be great, but that's not realistic. What we need to do is set a goal that you think you can reasonably accomplish within your budget. For most people, it's usually 2 to 5 years in time. For some people, it's just they want to be debt-free by retirement age. But we're going to set a goal, and then I'm going to help you develop a plan to work that goal. Today I'm going to talk to you about 6 steps to being debt-free. The first step is going to be to learn your credit score. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about negotiating a better interest rate. We're going to talk about never taking a cash advance, not paying just the minimum on your credit cards, trying to pay off the highest debt first, and then I got to cut the plug. We got to seal the leak. We can't keep using the credit cards without getting out of debt. Step 1, we've got to improve your credit score. In order to improve your score, we got to find out what it is. How do you go about finding out your score? Well, the first step could be to go to the free annual credit report website, which is listed on my slide. When you go there, you're going to find that most of the credit companies charge a fee to learn your actual score. And the fee is usually around $35. So you may have to pay that fee to get your score unless you have an alternative source for getting that score. Your goal is hopefully your credit score is above 700, but we're going to talk about ways that you can improve that score. The first step sounds the most obvious, to pay your bills on time. But this is the biggest impact on your credit score. If you pay a bill late, it might get reported to the credit companies. So what you want to do is make sure you open your bills when they come in the mail, find out the due date, how much you need to pay on it, and make sure you get it paid by the payment due date. That's going to avoid late fees, and it's going to avoid added interest charges perhaps. But most importantly, those late fees, because that just adds insult to injury, and we want to get you avoid paying those late fees. What else can you do to improve your score? One rule of thumb is to never charge more than 35 to 50% of the credit card limit. So if you have a limit of $10,000 on that card, you want to keep the balance outstanding to less than $5,000. If you get close to the limit on your card, then you want to stop using that card, because once you exceed that limit, it is possibly a ding on your credit score. A lot of people also, when they want to get rid of debt, want to cancel every card that they have. But rather than cancel the card, I'm just going to ask you to stop using them. You want to eliminate debt strategically. This impacts your credit score also. So instead of maybe canceling the card, we might maybe stop using it or cutting up the card and just closing them maybe over some period of time. And limit your application for new cards. I know this is hard when you go shopping. A lot of the stores want to give you a certain % off if you open a credit card today. And while it makes sense in the short term, you might save 15% on your purchase, In the long term, it can affect your credit score because every new card you open is an inquiry on your credit, and also those cards usually carry higher rates and maybe not in your best interest. Well, why do you want a good score? Why am I harping on about getting a good score? Well, we want a good score because a good score means we can get less interest rates. Now, where's that going to make the most meaningful impact to you? Well, usually when we go to get a car loan or a mortgage, then we're really faced with the reality of there's a relationship between our credit score and the interest rate we're going to be charged. So everything we can do to improve it will improve the interest rate that we're charged, which lowers the cost of the financing to you, and it's more money in your pocket. What we can also do is try to negotiate a lower rate of interest with the credit cards that we have. And that requires a little work on your part because you have to contact them and ask them if they have a better rate option that they can give to you. Often that results in success. If that's not successful for you, then you can see if you have a card with a lower rate of interest that you can transfer the balance to. That's often an option that works well. What I'm going to tell you is that if you're going to transfer the card to transfer the balance to a lower rate card, that be careful about that, because often when we transfer balances to a new card, the lower rate applies only to the transferred balance. So it doesn't apply to new purchases. So we want to strategically limit that card for the purposes of transferring the balance and lowering our rate of interest. Make sense? Step 3, never take a cash advance. I like to say, if there was a loan shark that lived down the street, would you want to run over and borrow money from him? Definitely not. The same thing with taking a cash advance. Usually there's very high fees associated with a cash advance. They can typically be around 3% is the typical fee, and they often carry a very high rate of interest, 20% or more. And you know, today's rates are very low, so paying a 20% rate of interest is just enormous. So please, my best advice, never take a cash advance. Step 4 is to eliminate the minimum payment trap. Why? If we only pay the minimum payment on our cards, it's going to take years to pay it off. Let's look at a couple of examples. If you have $2,500 on your card and at an 18% interest rate, and you're paying only the minimum, $75 per month on that, it's going to take you 15 years to pay it off. Now, some of you may have that much time remaining on your mortgage. I mean, for a $2,500 credit card balance, you're going to end up paying $2,300 additionally in interest. If you could just pay a little bit more per month, and in my example, $25 more per month, and instead of paying $75 per month, we increase it to $100 per month, look what happens. Instead of taking 15 years to pay it off, we're going to pay it off in less than 3 years. You got to be happy with that idea, right? It's going to cost you substantially less in interest, and you're going to pay it off in a relatively quick period of time. My rule of thumb is if you can at all afford to do it, try to pay twice the minimum. By paying twice the minimum, we're going to pay down our debt really quickly. If you have a mortgage, this really is a big effect, because if you can try to make one extra mortgage payment per year and apply that to principal, we're going to reduce your 30-year mortgage to being paid off in about 18 years, and that's substantial. Step 5 is probably the most complicated step of all, and that is really we want to try to pay down the highest rate card first. So in order to do that, to know which one we need to pay off first, we're going to have to make a list of the cards, how much we owe on them, and what the interest rate is attached to that loan. That's going to be strategically important in feeding into my next slide. Here I've got an example of 2 different types of cards. I've got Kohl's and Visa here. Now I love Kohl's and I love Visa, so I'm not picking on them. I'm just using them as an example. But let's suppose that you've got $1,000 on your Kohl's charge, and let's just say that carries a 20% interest rate. And let's suppose you also have $1,000 on your Visa card and it carries a 13% rate. Well, which one do we want to pay off first? We want to get rid of the 20% rate one first. That's our goal. Now, if we can double the minimum, so if their minimum payment is $45 now, if you just round it up and say we could take it up to $95 a month. So let's just say we can put $95 a month towards paying off these bills. How would we go about doing that in my example? Let's suppose that we first put our additional money, our additional $50 towards paying off the Kohl's bill. So we take $75 a month, we pay off the Kohl's bill quickly. In 14 months, we're done with the Kohl's bill. We're done with that. And then in the 15th month, we take that $75 and we put it towards extra on the Visa bill. So now we increase our Visa payment from $20 to $95 a month. And we're done with both bills in less than 2 years' time. How does that sound? Does that sound fantastic, to be done with your debt in 2 years' time? That sounds great to me. Where do you find the money, though? Where do we find the money to pay off these extra, to pay off more than the minimum? Where do we find that money? We're going to have to dig. I mean, there's going to be some pain involved in trying to find that extra money, but we can find it. There's certainly things you're doing in your budget that you don't need, absolutely. And that's things like coffee, manicures, eating out, entertainment, little things that can save up to big savings. And if we can use those dollars to pay down the debt, I think it's going to be well worth it for you in the long run. If you have money sitting in a savings account that's earning nothing right now, does it make sense to be paying 18% on a credit card when you're not earning any interest on it at the bank? Maybe not. So maybe it may make sense to take part of that money and shift it over to pay off some of this credit card debt. Lastly, I'd never like to encourage people to decrease their retirement savings, but in some cases it might make sense to temporarily decrease it in order to get rid of this high-rate credit card. Step 6 is we got to plug the leak. We got to stop it from happening, right? And these credit cards are so tempting because they're so easy for us to use. So my biggest advice to people is just try to use them responsibly. Try to only use a credit card for emergencies only. Try to use a debit card. A debit card, you can only spend what you have already in your bank account. So it encourages you to be more budget oriented. The other thing is to just try not to impulse buy. I know that if you're out shopping and you see something good on sale or you see something fabulous and you want to buy it right then and there, my advice to people is make a list of what you need and try to only buy things that are on that list. If you're out shopping and you see something great that you really would like to have, put it on hold. Think about it. Come back in 24 hours. It gives you time to think it through and find out if it's really in your budget to buy that item. That's a really great rule of thumb. Make sure if you're using a debit card that you have overdraft protection on it just in case you were to exceed your balance. If you are considering purchasing something large, like you want a big screen TV, this is something I would encourage you to try to save up for and pre-plan that purchase rather than trying to buy it on credit. If you have a credit union available through your employer, you might save a little bit of money every pay period to try to have enough money saved away in advance for that purchase. Again, try to only use those credit cards if it's absolutely necessary, and only consider debt if it's really for something extraordinary or an investment in yourself. For some people, debt counseling is overwhelming to them, and I understand that. And there's a professional services available to help you counsel you through your debt and help you get you debt-free. If you feel like it's overwhelming you, one of the services available is offered through the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and their website is up there on my slide. It is reportedly a reputable organization that you can use. Remember, I told you we need to have a goal. We need to set a goal and a plan for getting out of debt. And I know without a doubt that you're going to be happier in the long term if you can get rid of that debt. I know you can do it. You're going to do it. I know you're going to be successful, and I know you're going to be so happy that you did. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Olson Group Benefits TV. If you have additional questions, we have answers. I'm Tim Olson, and I look forward to seeing you on future episodes of the Olson Group Benefits TV.